I'm willing to bet that if you've spent at least one day of your life inside of an arcade, and chances are, my friends, you have probably played a Namco game. Just off the top of my head, I can list off games like Galaxian, Dig Dug, Galaga, the Tekken series. I mean, this is a house that Pac-Man built, for Christ's sakes. But today we're going to talk about a different kind of house, and the impact that it left in arcades and home consoles long before horror games were even that big of a thing. So what are we waiting for? Let's play some damn games already. In late 1989, Splatterhouse was released in arcades all over Japan, where it quickly gained notoriety due to the horror theme and having ultra-violent gameplay. Details about the game's development itself are practically non-existent, and the only notable information that I could dig up was that a small development team at Namco decided to take a chance on making a serious horror game during a time when that sort of thing was still considered taboo. Ironically, the most opposition came from Namco itself, when management constantly interfered and forced the team to make so many changes that the game wound up being released over a year and a half late. Eventually, the game was ported over to the PC Engine and the TurboGrafx-16 in 1990, and aside from a slight texture quality drop and the TurboGrafx version having all gore and religious references being removed or toned down altogether, the console versions were pretty faithful ports. But for this review, we're mostly going to focus on the arcade version just so we can get the definitive experience. The intro starts off with a parapsychology student named Rick and his girlfriend Jennifer running through the woods in a rainstorm when they come across Dr. West's abandoned mansion. As soon as they're inside, they get attacked in the dark, and it ends up with Jennifer getting kidnapped while Rick is left for dead. Shortly afterwards, a sacrificial mask appears and offers to help Rick rescue his girlfriend and get revenge on the monsters in exchange for souls. You know, because that sort of thing always works out great for everybody involved. Once you're awake, your goal is to rescue your girlfriend by hacking and smashing your way through 7 stages, each more gruesome than the last, until you reach a boss at the end of the level. The whole package here just looks really good, even by today's standards. Stages don't repeat themselves, and all the sprites are nice and detailed, and at that point, what more could you ask for? One thing that stood out to me was how the action takes place across a 2D plane, but occasionally you'll come across enemies in the background that can attack you or jump into the foreground, and that right there doesn't sound like a big deal these days, but seriously, it is pretty impressive, especially considering the technology at the time. The only game that I knew of that could do that sort of thing was Fatal Fury. What's the deal with Rick, though? It's almost like the developers couldn't make up their mind about how they wanted him to look. Every different place that you see him, he just looks different. In the promotional posters, he looks like Jason Voorhees. In the arcade, he's wearing blue hospital scrubs and he's barefoot. And it's not because he got attacked or transformed or anything, because in the intro, he looks exactly the same. Speaking of, who the hell runs through the woods in the rain like that? I mean, I can't even walk into the other room without stepping on a Lego. Meanwhile, George of the Jungle over here is hauling ass through Burweed Central, and it's not even slowing him down. It's bullshit. The biggest change is in the TurboGrafx version, where they changed the mask from white to red to avoid a lawsuit for very obvious reasons. Now he just looks like Tackleberry in Police Academy 4. Anyways. You spend most of the game fighting with your fists and feet, but periodically, you'll come across weapons to use that are actually kick-ass. Not only do they kill most enemies in one hit, but the visual effects are really cool. Depending on what you use, some enemies will get their heads lopped off, while others will get smashed into the background, leaving a gooey mess. And the developers were smart enough not to overdo it. Otherwise, a novelty would wear off pretty quick. And speaking of enemies, there's actually a decent variety here, and each level introduces a new one, so let's just quick run through the list. Alright, we've got walking shrimp, fat-headed aliens, shaved weasels, typical anime ghost waifus that are probably the least threatening looking enemies in the franchise, some pumpkin head with a trench coat and a witch's hat for some odd reason, and... oh great, bats. Jesus, I just can't escape Castlevania no matter what I do. The first level is pretty standard and an easy way to get used to how the game works. You just keep going forward while taking in the sights and the sounds until eventually you come across a room that looks like a basement dungeon perv's bathroom while a bunch of shaved weasels try to jump out and attack you. All you really need to do here is just stand on the right side of the screen and punch away, and you shouldn't have too many problems. Stage 2 is where things start picking up, when you fight this poltergeist-infested room, and I really had a lot of fun with this boss. Even though it's kind of bullshit that a bunch of items will just instantly appear without warning and drop on your head. This is probably a good time as any to talk about one of the more notorious things about this game. The difficulty. It's tough, but it's what I like to call Mega Man tough. Which basically means that the first couple of times that you play this game, you're gonna get your ass kicked and you're gonna see that game over screen an awful lot. But the more you play the game, the more you understand the mechanics and the better that you do. And let's be real here, nothing is more satisfying than beating a tough boss and making it look easy. That is until you start the next stage and begin the process all over again. The controls are simple, but the character movement is really sluggish. In the early levels, it's not really that bad, but when things start getting intense in the later levels, it can be a real pain in the ass, especially when you're jumping and attacking enemies in the air. These stupid anime ghosts are ridiculous, and what's worse is that when they hit you, there's a serious chance of getting knocked down that hole in the floor, which means you have to deal with this pumpkin-headed ball-buster, and I can't stand the son of a bitch. He just floats around making weird noises, and I'm not kidding. The first time he did his attack, I thought he was gonna flash me, but he does something just as horrific. He raises all the dead bodies around to swarm you. Fuck that guy. Stage 3 is probably the most iconic because this is where you fight Biggie Man, the guy with chainsaws for hands. Kinda reminds me of that stupid gardener from Castlevania 64. Never mind. I guess one reason why he's so iconic is because he's on the cover art for the TurboGrafx 16 port, and that's always been kind of funny to me. You'd think he'd be like a final boss or something because he's featured so prominently on the cover. Kinda reminds me of Quickman when he was on the cover of Mega Man 2, and he turns out to either be the easiest or one of the hardest robot masters that you come across. This stage is also pretty fun because this is the only one where you get a shotgun so you can pay back all the enemies for all the trouble they've put you through so far. Yeah, I've got something for you, you big bastard.
Roll 'em up.
Okay, this trick I'm sure everybody knows. If you save the ammo on the first shotgun and then you pick up the second one over and over again, you can actually push the items forward until Biggie Man appears, and that makes the fight way easier. Otherwise, this fight's just ridiculously hard. The fourth level is awesome because it's got a hole of mirrors and occasionally your reflection will come out and attack you. Wait, what the hell is this? Oh shit, I wish I had a sliding attack. Well, it turns out you do. Nice to know because I've already beaten the goddamn game 4 times already. What you're supposed to do is jump in the air, hold up, and the upper directional button at the same time, and then once you hit the ground, hit the down button and then the down directional and attack button all at the same time, and there's your slide attack. Seriously, what fucking planet did whoever thought this shit up come from where that makes any type of logical sense whatsoever? I've tried wrapping my head around the logic and I just can't do it, because that type of a control scheme is a clusterfuck from beyond the stars. I do realize that there's only 2 buttons to work with here, and the attack does twice the damage that a normal attack would, but here's the kicker. It does twice the damage, but it only works half of the fucking time anyway! Don't you think that you could have just fixed it so that there's 3 attacks per level and made it a charge or a Hadouken attack? No, let's make it the most convoluted, fucked up thing possible so more people jam more quarters into our goddamn machine. You fucking assholes, ya. Stage 5 is where I start to lose my patience with the game's controls, especially this part right here where a bunch of severed hands jump up and try to grab your ass, and every time they miss, They flip you the bird, and you can't even begin to convince me that they're doing something otherwise. All the while you're trying to dodge them, you're landing on these slanted platforms, and if you move the wrong way, it'll just dump you down and the enemies get a free hit on you. And in a game where you get absolutely zero health pickups, that's bullshit considering that you always show up to most boss fights pretty beat up. And if you're on your last life, you're done. You gotta start the level all over from the beginning. Why? Eventually you come across a bunch of demons surrounding Jennifer, and at this point, I'm just too traumatized to ask what the hell is going on here.
I'm dying.
Okay, if I saw that as a kid, I'd have nightmares for the rest of my fucking life. This is arguably the hardest boss in the game. All she does is jump all over the place and she sticks you with an extendo claw attack that can reach you if you're in the same zip code as her. After you beat this thing, some stupid demon runs on screen and laughs at you like he thinks he's funny and runs away.
You stupid.
What an asshole. Then you wind up jumping down a hole which leads to the 10th circle of hell. Wait a minute, this doesn't look like Camden. This is what's known as the womb of the house, and you have to fight off bubbles that turn into turd men while punching out God only knows until it spills all over the floor. Killing the boss here causes the house to go apeshit and burst into flames, including everything else surrounding it, which brings us to the last stage where we have to dodge flaming logs and burning enemies until you reach an unmarked grave, so the sacrificial mass can bring up the final boss, and honestly, this is one hell of a fight. You're supposed to punch him while avoiding clumps of dirt and getting smacked by both of his hands, which is kind of weird because the perspective is so off to me. Okay, just imagine that I'm sitting here trying to explain the game to you, and then all of a sudden my arms pop up over there while I'm talking. It's just... what? Once you beat him, some spirit pops up and disappears, and it's end credits where the mask comes back to laugh at you, which obviously means that there's gonna be a sequel, and I mean, yeah, sure, why not? So yeah, that pretty much sums up my experience with Splatterhouse, and it goes with that saying that this was a pretty solid game. The graphics, the music, the sound, the level design, the enemies, it's all really, really well done here. The only thing that's holding it back is just some sluggish controls and a couple of cheap deaths, which makes it a bit of a quarter muncher. But as far as horror games go, this wasn't the first one to come out, but it was the first one in a long time to show the industry that there was still a demand for that sort of thing. The only other game that came out that reached any type of popularity like this was Ghosts and Goblins, and that was 4 years prior. And it is pretty telling how resistant to the genre the industry was at that point, if the company developing it was actively sabotaging their own development process by forcing the team to make a bunch of changes. Because according to an internal interview that was published in a magazine that they used to pass out at the Namco arcades, Chief Planner Kazume Mizuno remarked, "They forced us to change a lot of parts in the planning document. In the beginning, the color of the blood was red and the zombies were realistic. But then management told us, if your game is going to be about killing, you can't make it realistic. Ultimately, we decided to make the blood a fluorescent green color, while the zombies became more alien." So despite all the interference from the higher-ups at Namco, Splatterhouse was considered a success. It wound up ranking 6th for the most popular arcade machines in Japan at the time. And not for nothing, if you stack that machine next to any other cabinet at the time, Splatterhouse definitely stood out. And it also helped the TurboGrafx 16 stand out in America, where pretty much Nintendo and Sega were running the show at that point. So it's definitely an interesting time capsule, and if you go into the game and not expecting anything more than what it gives to you, this is definitely worth checking out, even in 2021. So on that note, that's just about going to do it for me. So as always, thanks so much for dropping by and inviting me into your day like this. I really appreciate you, and I hope you guys are having a great week, and I hope you have a nice weekend. So until next time, auf Wiedersehen, bye-bye. Let's be real here. What? I was actually doing pretty good, too. You're gonna get your ass kicked, and you're gonna see this hang? What? The most boss fight's pretty beat up. And if you're on your... Oh, motherfucker. Windows notifications, man. Someone could be delivering my goddamn eulogy, and in the middle of it, you hear boom. I need one of those gamer chairs, dude. $2,000 for fucking steel and cloth padding. Because you have to deal with this purple-headed ball buster. Purple-headed? Purple-headed ball buster. Jesus Christ. Whew. But today we're going to talk about a different kind of house, and the impact that it made on arcades and home consoles long before horror. You done? You good to go? You want to join me? Is that what you do want to do? You want to join me? Come on up. But today we're going to talk about a different kind of house, and the impact that it made across arcades and consoles long before horror games were even that big of a thing. So what are we waiting for? Let's play some damn games already. Ugh. Galaxian, Dig Dug, Galaga, the Tekken series. This is the house that Pac-Man built, for Christ's sakes. But today we're going to talk about a different kind of house. Nothing is more satisfying than beating a tough game and making it look easy. That is until you start the stage... Not even funny anymore. That is until you start the next stage and begin the... Oh, damn, that's a bad one. That is until you... Oh, man, I'm punch drunk. Nothing like watching a cat try to rip a screen door down, too. That'll be an amusing fucking chase. That'll probably be more amusing than this goddamn review, is watching my big ass chasing the cat around the backyard with a screen door stuck up its ass.